Broadcasting from the heart of the nation, the next generation in conservative talk radio. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Why, yes it is. What is up, my friends? Welcome into it. Hey, we're almost there. We see the light at the end of the tunnel. I had to second guess myself as we were about ready to come on here. I totally forgot it was a Thursday. It has been such a blur this week. Just doing our thing, going through the grind. The week is almost over. I know you're excited about it, probably counting down the days, which means you only have one more day to do that. Welcome into the show. Hey, so great to have you along on a pre-Friday celebration, broadcasting right here in the heart of the nation in Wichita, Kansas, our great flagship radio station. But we are all over the country. So many great radio stations and TV, live streaming, podcasting. However you watch or listen to us, welcome aboard.
Do it live.
Your Millennial General reporting for duty like we do every single day. There is so much going on today. I do not know where to start. My brain hurts, and I'm going to try really, really hard to make sure it is a coherent collective thought on the issues today because of how much is happening. Some good news, so you can pat yourself on the back. We had a really big win today. And then we also had some really big shenanigans, which is really strange to me because normally if there's going to be any type of shenanigans, any type of grandstanding, any type of big issue, that it would normally be done closer to election season. You have to remember, these politicians, man, while they do kind of sort of, at least most of them, really believe in the issues that they're fight for. Conservatives, for the most part, the ones that are ideologically driven, not the ones that are the big government rhinos or the Republican side or the Democrat side. They're there just to make a grandstanding statement and then move on about their day and forget all about it and use it for a campaign slogan or some type of donation. But there are politicians that truly do believe what they stand for, and sometimes I get a little feisty. Other times, they do it just for the grandstanding. We saw that today. We will cover that here momentarily. Paul Winfree, he'll be joining us on the program. He is the president of EPIC as they talk about some economic issues in the nation and what we get to look forward to after, especially the big vote that happened today. Do you know what happened? One more time. Yeah, do you know what happened? Yeah. It was kind of bigly.
And I think we're going to make it bigly.
So a bill passed the House of Representatives today by a 2-vote majority. It does go over to the Senate, and it only needs a simple majority to pass, which means it would be a no-brainer. And if Republicans do not pass this bill, then there's some serious problems. So we will talk about that momentarily. And it does do a lot of what we have been calling for a while. The rescission bill, codifying and permanentizing some of the DOGE cuts.
Say what?
I know, and the sum of near $9 billion. So we'll cover all that here momentarily. First and foremost, though, let's get into what's trending.
What's trending today?
Yeah, we kind of called it. I was not aware that a certain individual was on some late-night TV shows, but we had been, I think it was yesterday, we took a jab at Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, and I had made the comment that wouldn't it be nice, even though I was a little upset with him at the time because he was kind of a turncoat Republican, and it was unfortunate that he was such a turncoat Republican, but I would take him compared to what we're dealing with today with Arnold Schwarzenegger, the former gummy bear of California. In other words, the former governor of California. Yeah, I'm going to do the job. Yeah, he was on late night TV. Last night, was it? On one of the late night TV shows talking about the riots in L.A. and trying to play the middle of the road like he normally does. But it was kind of interesting to hear from him again.
The protest. I think that what you're referring to is, of course, the protests that are going on
everything
in LA.
that's going on.
I totally agree with you, by the way, Jimmy, because they make it out to like it is a war zone, the whole Los Angeles, the whole city or the county. And the fact of the matter is it's maybe like 0.001% of the area of Los Angeles has problems and there's a protest.
Yeah.
And so I think that this is important for people to know because I don't want all of a sudden tourism to suffer in Los Angeles because what they see on television, because the media sometimes shows it as if the whole Los Angeles is a big war zone, which isn't really the case.
No, none of Los Angeles is a war zone.
This wouldn't happen.
Okay, I want to stop right there for just a moment. We could do an entire program just on the few comments said, Arnold Schwarzenegger, the gummy bear of California. We could do an entire program on what he talked about and the comments that he's made. I do want to make it clear, though, that if there are violent riots happening in a city, regardless of how big the city is, and he's right, it's a 0.001% of the entire city population, even of the Democrat Party, where the vast majority are nonviolent individuals out there protesting. There's been protests all over the country, and they're not violent for the most part. Some of them have some hateful rhetoric that are advocating for violence, which is what we've talked about on the program prior. But the actual physical violence at that time has not happened until we've seen these riots in L.A. That doesn't change the fact that there's still violence going on and that these people are unhinged because they're not getting their way and doing what they want, and therefore they're going to throw their ultimate temper tantrum, and they burn cars and they burn American flags and they loot pot shops and they steal shoes or whatever else they're doing. Doesn't matter. And if that is happening at all, that does make me second guess whether I want to go to Los Angeles, which I probably won't anytime soon. That's why I'm probably not going to go to New York City. Their crime rate there is absolutely ridiculous. Now, compared to the vast population of New York, is everybody there a criminal in New York City? Of course not. It's a stupid comparison. So I take it back. I said that I was really hoping that maybe Arnold Schwarzenegger, the former governor of California, would be a better governor than what Newsom would be at this time. But his comments really don't make a whole lot of sense, because even though it is 0.001% of the population, still doesn't make me want to go to L.A. right now. If this is going on, and if the politicians and the leaders of the place don't want to deal with it, then I kind of don't want to go there. Not that I want to spend the entire show on this again, because you're probably getting tired of hearing this, but come on, man. Absolutely crazy. Now, that being said, I want to get into the big story, a couple of big stories of the day.
What's trending today?
The grandstanding of the Democrats. And is this the hill that they're going to die on? And I really want you to ponder that fact. Is this where Democrats end up officially crumbling? They've really tried to push the whole DEI and identity politics. They've really tried to enforce the LGBTQ for Pride Month, although it's not going as planned this year, really is good and as popular as what it has been in the past. They've really tried to push the whole affirmative action idea that we need to focus on identity politics because everybody that's not white is an absolute victim. Like, that's what we've heard for a really long time. And out of all of that, this is the issue that they're going to die on, the hill that they're going to die on, which is getting rid of criminal, illegal aliens in the nation. Now, is there a deeper conversation to have regarding immigration status and undocumented workers and a path to citizenship? Absolutely. It's been a conversation that's been going on for decades, and politicians, as Arnold did say later on, that politicians have not wanted to address.
If the politicians would do the work.
Yeah.
Think about it.
So what do you mean by that exactly? What do you mean by that?
For decades, almost 4 decades, we have had a problem where they talked about immigration reform, comprehensive immigration reform. But the Democrats and the Republicans, both of the parties, have no interest in solving this problem because they use that to raise money.
All right, and I can agree with him on that statement. Can't you? This has been a conversation for a long time. However, we have to remember there are 2 parts to this conversation. There is the immigration policy on who can get visas, how do you get visas, how many asylum seekers, what's the process for the pathway to citizenship. That's a conversation that needs to be had. Is it easy enough? Is it too easy? Do we need to tighten the belt up a little bit? How do we go through this process? How much does it cost? That's a whole conversation. That is separate than border security. And when you're talking about these issues, especially immigration, you have to handle them in 2 separate fronts: border security and immigration. And before you can discuss immigration, you have to stop the bleeding with the border security, which is what Trump's doing right now. Now, later, do you think he's going to have a conversation about immigration? Probably, because he's Donald Trump and he wants to actually solve these issues and make it better. And right now, you have to stop the bleeding, which he's been able to do. We have to stop the criminals that are currently in the country, which is what we're doing right now. Once those issues are finished, then we can say, hey, we need to, as Donald Trump has said, we have the big, beautiful wall. Now we need the big, beautiful door. We need to streamline the process for the naturalization process. We need to make sure that it's easy for individuals to come in and out and be able to make sure that they don't overstay and make sure that we're vetting them properly so we don't have proper criminals coming into the country. We need to have that conversation. But before you can do that, you have to cut the bleeding off with the border security aspect of this. Then you move forward. Democrats are impatient, and they're the ones that are livid about this conversation because it affects them in so many ways. The former plantation owners, a.k.a. the Democrat Party, that has loved slavery, that has loved segregation, that has loved indentured servants, that has loved the separate but equal, and that has loved the Jim Crow laws all throughout the American history. That's the party that is really upset about this whole issue because they're losing the people, quote unquote, doing the jobs that Americans don't want to do, which is an insanely offensive and racist comment. And it's the population in these areas that they've been trying to start turning red districts into purple districts for a population number so that way Democrats can take hold of Congress and the federal government and never lose power again. We know it's happening. So my question is, why the grandstanding now? We're a year and a half away from the midterm elections, and I know that they never let a crisis go to waste. They take advantage of every opportunity that they possibly can. These riots in LA are mistimed horribly, and the grandstanding, and for them to stand on this pedestal and to lose this issue when all the polls show that Donald Trump, that Kristi Noem, that Tom Homan are extremely popular, and that they have a very high approval rating right now, that this is where they're going to die on this hill, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. That, of course, coming from the press conference earlier today from Kristi Noem in California when Senator Alex Padilla, the Democrat, wanted to storm in and grandstand and ended up getting booted out and arrested and handcuffed and walked out of the event.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary because the fact of the matter is a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your hands off.
Hands off if he gets thrown out of the building, or at least thrown out of the conference room, and then law enforcement comes, puts him on the ground and arrests him, handcuffs him. That was, I got to admit, a little bit of personal gratification. That was nice to see. It was kind of fun to watch. But why would you do that? Now, to the Democrats are like, oh, he's so brave, he's so strong, he's so courageous. He's fighting the system and fighting the tyrants against the ICE baby, a.k.a. Kristi Noem, the Secretary for the Department of Homeland Security. Look at how brave he is going in and challenging this. He knew what was going to happen. He's a U.S. Senator. He knows exactly the process of security. She was doing a press conference, and he wanted intentionally to make a scene. These individuals are so fake. That's why it's ridiculous, because it's not just what he did, which is really stupid and dumb, just like every protester out there holding signs saying that we're going to fight for these individuals and we're going to chant and we're going to come up with a clever tune and we're going to hold this sign that says Donald Trump's a fascist. It's stupid. You're wasting your time. Great. You're making your voice heard. No one's listening to you, and we're kind of patting you on the head and like, oh, you're so special. We don't care. We just don't care anymore. It's really old, and I know this weekend's going to be even more ridiculous, too. We don't care anymore. Yeah, that being said, he knew exactly what was about to happen in that event. It was a press conference with the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and he barged in unattended, trying to make a scene. That's what annoys me the most, is why are you so fake? You can maybe believe in the policy or believe in the movement that you're trying to change, but you knew exactly what was going to happen and it didn't do anything. This is totally bad timing for the Democrats, because while they're going to use this on the campaign trail for the midterms next year, this is way too early to get people to pay attention for them to go into the voting booth next year to decide who's going to lead Congress for another 2 years. Totally bad timing, and this is ridiculous of how Democrats are acting right now, and it's not working. Which, again, this is why we're watching them die on this hill. This is their last stand of the Democrat Party before they admit that radicals have taken hold of their party and they don't know how to get it back. This is the dying screech of the dying animal, and it's kind of wild to watch.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier. When reason meets radio. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Yeah, welcome back to the program. So much to get to, so little time to do so as usual. What a rock star, by the way, Kristi Noem is, the Secretary for the Department of Homeland Security, doing the press conference. Democrat U.S. Senator Alex Padilla. I'm so upset I'm going to interrupt your press conference and get drug out and arrested and handcuffed, which was very gratifying to watch, by the way. But knowing this was going to happen, trying to interrupt her, what a rock star Kristi Noem was. As this is happening, She just continues on. She keeps talking. Not a hitch in her step whatsoever. She did pause briefly as they threw him out, and he's like, "Get off me, don't stop." And then she just kept going, did not care whatsoever.
We are not going away. We are staying here to liberate this city from the socialist and the burdensome leadership that this governor and that this mayor have placed on this country and what they have tried to insert into this city. So I want to say thank you to every single person that has been able to do this. Also, I want to talk specifically to the rioters and to the politicians in Los Angeles.
Half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your
I also want to talk about specifically.
She just keeps going. Well done, Kristi Noem. That was brilliant. That's awesome. Not a care in the world. He tried to grandstand. He tried to make a big moment, and obviously it's going to be all over the news, and people are going to talk about it, and Democrats say, he's so courageous. And we're just going to be like, wow, what an interrupter. What an idiot. Can you at least do something productive? Work on legislation. Call out and say, we're going to fight this. If you politically disagree with what's going on, we want to try and stop the deportation of criminal illegal aliens. We want to protect the cartel members. We want to protect gang members and those that commit homicides and rapes and everything of the sort. Openly come out and say it. Just admit it, bro. But yet you just try to interrupt Kristi Noem, and she didn't flinch, man. She just stopped for a second. They booted him out. It's a big skirmish that's going on. They throw him out of there, and then she just continues on. So well done on that front, which is running, and that's what we have to do. We're just done. Now, Democrats not in the best of light right now. Obviously, the propaganda piece they've been pushing on us isn't quite working out the way that they were hoping it to be. Gavin Newsom getting called out for not talking to Donald Trump when Donald Trump said, hey, I talked to him for 12, 13 minutes. Here's exactly what we talked about. Then saying that they handled the issue immediately, which wasn't true. We had the timestamps of when they actually called to bring law enforcement in to stop these violent rhetoric. They have to recover somehow when they tried to make this an emotional argument, and it didn't quite work. And the only people that they have fooled that's all worked up about this are the ones that are out there protesting and burning down vehicles. The L.A. District Attorney trying to talk tough right now as well to try and rebound and build up the progressive movement just a little bit more than what they have right now.
Let me provide some bad news for you. There's a tremendous amount of video out there through social media and otherwise. We will know who you are, who engaged in this conduct. We will track you down. We will arrest you. We will prosecute you, and we will punish you. So, for people who've already engaged in this illegal activity, we're coming for you.
Whoa, now we'll see if that actually happens, because every time they talk really tough, that doesn't really happen. It's like Tim Walz out there saying, we're going to come after, I'm the tough guy, I'm the manly man, I'm going to bring in the masculine vote and the men vote for the presidential. We could see how well that worked out. So I don't know whether it's going to happen or not, but the district DA for Los Angeles, he is talking tough at least, saying that they're going to go after these individuals. We'll see if that actually happens or not. Donald Trump today as well signing a bill that reverses a lot of the EV mandates, banning all gas vehicles being sold in the state by 2030 or whatever that policy was. We have some of that audio we'll get to in just a moment. But this is not good for Democrats across the board. If they're going to do this grandstanding, it will be forgotten in a year, because the elections and the midterm, which is what they all care about right now, just trying to find a way to fight Donald Trump, it'll be forgotten, especially with how quickly Donald Trump moves on issues. And again, if you want to deal with the issue after you stop the bleeding from the border security problem, then Congress, Republicans and Democrats need to sit down and figure out a way to reform and streamline the immigration process to make everybody happy. And I guarantee you Trump's going to do it with what he mentioned earlier today.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier. Truth, reason, and common sense. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Lasted 16 minutes and 4 seconds, and it was at 12:30 in the evening. I actually made a call, didn't pick up. I called him a second time, and he picked up. And I told him, I said, you have to get your ass in gear, because you're going to have a problem there.
So President Donald Trump talking about his call with Gavin Newsom, who said he never talked to Donald Trump about the issue, had no idea what was going on, had no idea that he was going to send in National Guard, absolutely insane. One more thing before we drop this, and I have some really good news for us and our great guest on the next line here, ready to jump on that in just a moment. As we look at the reforms of what's coming, again, you can't address immigration reform until you address border security. Two separate things. We need to seal and stop the bleeding, which we have done. Now we need to clean out all the virus, which is the criminals, and then we can start working on immigration reform to actually make it easier for people to go through the naturalization process or to get certain visas or whatever we need to do. That conversation needs to happen afterwards. There was a truth done a little while ago by President Donald Trump on his Truth Social that said this: our great farmers and people in the hotel and leisure business have been stating that our very aggressive policy on immigration is taking very good long-time workers away from them, with these jobs being almost impossible to replace. In many cases, the criminals allowed into our country by the very stupid Biden open border policy are applying for those jobs. This is not good. We must protect our farmers, but get the criminals out of the USA. Changes are coming. Now, we don't know exactly what those are. Donald Trump did hold about an hour-and-a-half long press conference earlier today. I have not had a time to listen to the entire thing. I know that it was mostly to sign the bill to end the electric vehicle mandate in the state of California, but he did address some other issues as well. Have not had a chance to listen to it. I don't know if he gave any details on what that is, but he's right. I mean, there are the manufacturing plants, there are the meat processing plants, there are the construction companies, there are the hotel and leisure, there are farmers in the ag industry, a lot of them that could be impacted by the rounding up of quote-unquote undocumented workers that may not have, outside of being here illegally, that have any other type of criminal activity. And it sounds like Donald Trump may be doing some reforms on exactly how he's going to approach this issue. Some are not very happy about it. I say that if we are going to reform it, this would be the time. But again, this reinforces my idea that Donald Trump is handling this in the two-part process, which is the way it needs to be done: seal the border and then do the immigration policy reform. And that's the direction that we're going. Now, that being said, I want to shift gears.
What's trending today?
Because there is some very good news on the horizon. I'm tired of talking about these crazies out in California. I really don't care about them anymore. What do we say on this program? That's right.
Stop breaking the law!
Okay, that's right. We just don't care anymore.
We don't care anymore!
Now, the big news of the day today is the House of Representatives has been busy, and in fact, they passed a major bill with a 2-vote majority. A few Republicans not getting on board, which is concerning. But according to the New York Post, House of Representatives passes the rescission bill of cutting near $9.4 billion and codifying some of the DOGE cuts at the federal level. Oh yeah. Now, by the way, for those that have been asking this for a while, this also includes $8.3 billion that were allocated to the USAID for some foreign policy issues of like transgender Sesame Street in Uganda or something. It also, however, does include $1.1 billion in cuts to corporate public broadcasting, a.k.a. NPR, PBS. That has passed the House of Representatives. This is now moving over to the Senate. Talk about some of this. Really happy to have on the program to break all of this down and so much more. He's the president and founder of the Economic Policy Innovation Center, also known as EPIC. We've had him on the program many times before, Mr. Paul Winfree. Paul, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you bet. And what a day to have you on here. Such good news. We're able to codify some of these DOGE cuts. That's exciting.
Finally.
Yeah, finally. We've been waiting for this.
No, this is absolutely a monumental day. I mean, $9.4 billion is nothing to sneeze at. But the way that I see the DOGE cuts and this rescissions package is that this is really a test. It's a test for Congress. And fortunately, the House of Representatives has passed. I can't believe that it came down to just the 2-vote majority to send this thing over to the Senate. But here we are. And now it goes to the Senate. And now the Senate in July is going to have to come back after they do the reconciliation bill. And they're going to need to pass this so that we can get it over to Trump so that we can lock in that $9.4 billion. And again, I said that I think that this is a test. And if the Senate can't do that, if the Senate can't deliver the votes to send this thing to President Trump to codify these DOGE cuts, then I suspect that what the president will do is he'll tell his folks over at the Office of Management and Budget that they've got to, then employ new tools to go even bigger and bolder to make sure that they're ultimately delivering on eliminating this waste, fraud, and abuse to the American public, and that Trump is able to, live up to the mandate. The reason why, one of the many reasons why the American people sent him back to the White House in November.
Yeah, it's a really great point. There's so much to cover here. Number one is, like you said, it was weird that there was only a 2-vote majority. 4 Republicans ended up not voting for the bill, siding with the 208 Democrats on this one. So that's the first concern. Is now that it's punted over to the Senate, the good news, we only need a single vote majority in the Senate on this bill. It's not a budget bill, so we don't have to worry about the filibuster 60-vote supermajority here. Are you anticipating this go through the Senate? And part 2 is, while the Senate is working on the reconciliation, the big, beautiful bill right now, will this help maybe some of the fiscal hawks know that while we are, quote unquote, going further into debt with the reconciliation bill, that we do have cuts along the way with the rescission that might help them get on board with this other bill as well?
Well, I think that's a good point. I mean, look, there are big spenders in both parties. There are big spender Republicans and there are big spender Democrats. Yeah. And I think that, and that's one of the reasons why they lost a couple of Republican votes in the House. And I suspect that there are some appropriators who are going to, be concerned with any level of cuts, even though, as you laid out at the top of the program here, that this is this is low-hanging fruit stuff. I mean, this is like the wokest and the weaponized of the spending. I mean, if you can't do this, you lose faith in some of these folks.
Right.
But that said, I think that this is just the start of the process. And the Office of Management Budget is actually preparing another round of cuts that they're hoping to introduce sometime in August, that they might not even need Congress to come in and vote on and to codify as part of what the OMB is calling this pocket rescissions process. Basically, what they're going to do is they're going to identify a bunch of these DOGE cuts. They're going to then freeze the spending at some point in August. And if Congress doesn't codify them by the end of the fiscal year, which ends on September 30th, then the spending goes away, hence the pocket rescissions process. This has only been used a couple of times in the last 50 years. But we're living in unprecedented times in some ways, and it's totally legal, and it'll be really exciting to see what OMB includes in that second set of cuts, because I suspect that it'll be much bigger than just the $9.4 billion that they've identified in this first round.
Oh, wow. So even bigger than this one that could be done even without Congress. That's even more surprising. Paul, we're living, like you said, in such an unprecedented time. It's such an amazing time to witness this because, correct me if I'm wrong here, Paul, I don't ever remember having government begin to actually downsize and cut itself. Once an agency gets certain money, once a program gets started, once a new bureaucratic department gets started up, it never goes away. And while we haven't officially closed anything yet, like we need to close the Department of Education and some of these others, we haven't closed them yet. But the fact that we're even cutting spending at all, this is truly a monumental time right now.
It's a truly monumental time. When I was President Trump's budget director at the very beginning of his first term, one of the things that we talked to him about at the time was about how it's easier to cut things by 50 or 75% than it is to cut things by 5%. And at the time, I think he as a businessman understood that, but there were people around him, as these things play out, who ended up pushing back on that narrative and saying, we can't take on these massive challenges of, eliminating entire bureaus or agencies, or we can't cut these programs by 50 or 75 or even 100% because, their different constituencies will come out and they'll complain and they'll lobby you and they'll create these political problems for you. And it took 4 years of the presidency and then 4 years of the weaponization of government against President Trump for him to realize, no, it actually is easier to just eliminate these programs than it is to reform them on the edges. And if we truly need them, we can always bring them back in other ways.
Right.
And so, that's one of the things that, has made me really excited about the whole DOGE initiative. And, the director of Office of Management and Budget, Russ, vote, who will be taking over DOGE from Musk, has said, DOGE is more than just an initiative. It's really a way of life and a culture that we're trying to, really empower here at OMB and really keep it going, even though Musk has left the White House.
Wow, that is really exciting. I am so glad about that. We're talking with Paul Winfree. He's the president of EPIC, the Economic Policy Innovation Center. Paul, we got to take a break here. Can you stick over one more segment with us?
For sure.
Awesome. I want to continue this on because this is amazing to hear, and I want to see what the next step is for DOGE, the next step for the budget cuts. Like you said, can we win over some of these fiscal hawks and conservatives on this reconciliation bill with the big, beautiful package, and moving forward into the budget process that we haven't even talked about as yet either? Can we start seeing this major reform happen right before our eyes, which is really exciting? We'll do that with Paul Winfree when we come back. Also, with the House passing of this rescission bill, NPR, PBS, losing their federal funding. Could we see that actually take hold with the Senate passing it further? This is a wild time. Told you, a lot of things going on today, and your brain's going to hurt with so much winning today. I don't know how we can cram any more in there, right?
Winning.
That's what it's all about. Lots more coming up. Stay here.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier. America's safe space for common sense. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
And it has to do with the California Auto Regulation, CRA. It's been a disaster for this country. And I want to thank everybody for being here. We officially rescue the U.S. auto industry from destruction by terminating the California electric vehicle mandate once and for all.
There it is. Donald Trump signing that just a little while ago. That's kind of exciting news. And another just dig into Gavin Newsom. I'm sure he's pretty angry about that one. Did you know?
We're all gonna die because of you!
Yeah, that's the way that Newsom's going to feel about that. That's all right. Something else for them to just grandstand about and get really upset and get arrested out of press conferences or something. I don't really know. But good news, I don't want to focus all on the negative today. The good news is we have the House passing the first rescission bill as we cut more than $9 billion out of the federal government, moving to the Senate. Much of that coming from the USAID, over $8 billion of it, $1.1 billion coming from the public. Can you imagine $1 billion going into public broadcasting, NPR and PBS across the nation? And that is about to end if we can get the Senate to pass and move forward with that one. We're hanging out with Paul Winfree, president of EPIC, here on the program as we talk about the budgets and the economy, how things are cranking along. The economy, I just saw a headline a little while ago, Paul, about New York bankers saying that the potential for a recession this year is down from 35% down to 30%, which is good news. So it seems like the Trump economy continues to crank right along here.
Oh, I think that even 30% is way too high. I mean, all of the aggregates look amazing, right? Inflation is coming down. Growth numbers are off the charts. The Atlanta Fed just released a potential growth number for the second quarter of 2025, almost 4% real growth. I mean, we haven't seen these levels of real growth since the first Trump administration. It's been a long, long time.
Yeah.
So I think that everything's looking good right now. The one thing that kind of gives me a hang up is the job numbers. The jobs are starting to cool. And this is why, Trump has been, really starting to pressure the Federal Reserve, in particular, Jay Powell. He calls him too late Powell, to start to cut rates, or at least, bring the pressure off of cutting back on inflation, because they do seem to have inflation under control while the job market is cooling. So it probably is the time for the Fed to start cutting rates here. That'll spread throughout the rest of the economy and get it heated back up again.
Yeah, well, it is exciting because inflation is actually going down for the first time in 4 years. I mean, it was slowing the growth and only increasing at a slower rate under Joe Biden in certain aspects, which is what he was touting and saying it's going down. It's not going down. It's just growing at a slower rate. For the first time in the first quarter, we saw inflation actually go in a negative direction, go down for the first time, which was really encouraging. It was only by like 0.3%, but by golly, it was a negative number, which is really positive. So we're moving in that right direction. We pass the reconciliation. We get these Trump tax cuts codified from 1.0. We do the Trump tax cuts 2.0. We get these rescission bills passed to start cutting government spending. Paul, we might actually have a cranking economy, get our budget almost under control at a federal level, and watch the GDP actually flourish.
Oh, 100%. I mean, think about it like this. If the Congress can implement this reconciliation bill that cuts spending by $1.6 trillion while also paying taxes, while at the same time we are able to we've made meaningful progress on inflation, and the Fed starts to take their foot off the pedal on increasing rates and starts to actually cut rates, those two things will send a huge signal to the bond markets. We'll start seeing the price of long-term treasuries fall, which means that the price of things like mortgage rates will start to fall, credit card rates will start to fall, and private debt will become cheaper, and we'll see investment boom in this country, and we could see massive economic growth in the latter half of the year. I mean, I'm really, really optimistic. I mean, remember just a few months ago, and I'm not in the same place as the president is on across-the-board tariffs, but he has shown that he can use tariffs to renegotiate trade deals that benefit the United States. I think that we've had to give him the space to do that. I think they've shown that they've been able to make real progress on that, and that, as well as all of these other things that are happening right now, I think that major economic growth is going to happen here in the later half of the year.
I completely agree. I really hope that we didn't sabotage and shoot ourselves in the foot when the judges ended up trying to stop some of these tariffs from being implemented that really gave the other countries a negotiating tool at the table to really stop doing the renegotiation, but we'll see if we can get those back on track. Paul, we are out of time, my friend. I love it. Keep up this great fight. We're moving in the right direction. Let's get you back on for another update soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Always love it. Paul Winfree, Epic. Go check him out. See what they're all about. We appreciate him coming on very much. Until then, back at it again tomorrow for your Friday to wrap up the week. We'll see you on the radio. Bye.